Welcome to a special presentation of the Irish Goodbye. This program is about an unsolved mystery. Whenever possible, the actual league members and police officials have participated in recreating and clarifying events. What you are about to hear is not a news broadcast. For every mystery, there is someone, somewhere, who knows the truth. Perhaps that someone is listening. Perhaps it's you. Two members of a historic and storied fantasy football league got together to discuss a trade on the morning of October 22nd. Two players and a draft pick were traded from each team. That was when something unexplainable happened. The following week, one of those traded players found his way back to his original team for yet another player. The league was confused. Was this a mistake, an honest trade, or was something lurking under the surface? Was it collusion? Jason, I would like to know what the definition of collusion is before we begin with our recounting of what happened on that fated day on October 22nd.
Of course. The Oxford Dictionary defines collusion as a secret or illegal cooperation or conspiracy, especially in order to cheat or deceive others. Now, I posit the question, does this align with what we saw on October 22nd through October 28th between Fat Guy in a Little End Zone and Troll Tools?
I think in order to answer that question fairly, Jason, I think we're going to have to go through the complete timeline of what occurred, what we know, and what we have found out since then. On October 22nd at 11:33 a.m., Fat Guy in a Little End Zone and Troll Tolls engaged in a trade that sent Drake London, Aaron Jones, and a third-rounder to the Troll Tolls. In exchange, Fat Guy in a Little End Zone received Chris Olave, Breece Hall, and a sixth-rounder. Not a bad trade. I don't think anyone was. Mm-hmm. We were mostly surprised that people were trading at this point, and it was nice to see the engagement. Discussion did ensue afterwards, in which Fat Guy in a Little End Zone reminded Jason of the rules of the league. That we did not need any discussion anymore, and that trades are pushed through immediately.
He did say that, and it seemed odd to me. I think I made a quip along the lines of, co-commissioner, using his power to his own benefit, and very honestly, a very stark and serious reply. We don't need discussion anymore. Trades are pushed through immediately. I was a little taken aback, but I was thinking, Fat Guy in a Little End Zone excited to get the new talent on their squad, wanted to get the deal done. Why wait around? Nothing wrong with it, So it sort of passed out of my mind in that moment.
Indeed. Was Chuck just a little hangry from having a late lunch that day, or was something hiding under the surface? Was he trying to deceive the league with knowledge that he had? Because on October 28th, Fat Guy in a Little End Zone and Troll Tolls once again engaged in a trade that sent Breece Hall back to the Troll Tolls in exchange for Travis Etienne. This was done without the customary red flashing lights trade alert. This was done by Brian Adams quietly, as the shortest amount of text possible, almost as if he were trying to hide it within the many texts and many Discord messages of the trade alerts.
Yeah, in retrospect, which I think is in this case is the most important way to view this. It really does seem like it was with what we know now and will be further discussing, it was more of they knew what they were doing. and they were trying to get it done with as little fanfare or attention as possible.
And I can't help but notice, Jason, that this also happened during our regularly scheduled recording time for the Irish Goodbye, almost as if they didn't want the media paying attention while they made these deals.
Yes, and interestingly enough, I mean, just seeing how it played out, it is one of those situations where you say, well, you know, um, there is a specific percentage of the league that is tasked with reporting on league events that are otherwise indisposed right now in that moment. And, it could be coincidence, but on the other hand, I think at some point, too many coincidences together really add up to something more. And in this case, I believe something more nefarious.
Well, and the Troll Tolls did receive, I guess, Fat Guy in a Little End Zone as well, but Troll Tolls were the ones who were announcing the trade. They received some pushback, and they claimed to the group that they had done this before at 6:52 p.m. on October 28th, claiming a gentleman's agreement was struck with the initial deal. But upon further investigation by our crack investigative team here at the Irish Goodbye, in the trade announcement that Fat Guy in a Little End Zone presented, no such agreement was ever noted to the rest of the league. Troll Tolls then decided to try to redefine collusion. And our investigative team looked, but at this point, Troll Tolls has not released their own officially sanctioned dictionary. So we could not verify whether or not this is how they have it written in their own wordsmithing document. But he said, collusion is literally plotting to feed one team without the other gaining anything just to help the other team win. And importantly, you will notice that the difference between Troll Toll's definition of collusion and the Oxford Dictionary, there appears to be a rather large gap of difference of meaning there.
I mean, yeah, I think they're, at best, this is a clear, walking a tightrope type situation. I would say that, I'm quite sure Troll Tolls and That Kind of Little End Zone both had, as we have shared here today, the Oxford Dictionary definition pulled up on a tab on their computers as they made this trade. The guardrails were there, the moral and ethical guardrails. It's more than just the letter of the law, but it's what is right, what is just, and those things were clearly brushed aside in this scenario. It almost seemed as if these defensive, this sort of defensive approach, these quotes that you've referenced here by Troll Tolls, in that moment, almost leads me to believe that they expected this pushback, almost a scripted response to any sort of concern or resistance.
And it would
by the league.
It would appear that Fat Guy in a Little End Zone agreed, because at 7:39 that night, he appeared to see exactly what you were describing there, and agreed that with the consensus of the group, if collusion was entered into, he would reverse the trade offer. And again, the chat continued at 7:45. Bare Naked Hades entered the chat and began positing some things, such as how this had united Bare Naked Hades and the Cardinals, two bitter enemies and rarely on the same side of an issue. In fact, as far as our investigative team could find, the last time that the Bare Naked Hades, by their previous name, and the Cardinals had found themselves on the same side of an issue was the last time that the Troll Tolls, under their previous name, had entered into a potential collusion event. Now the story continues to get more murky and more interesting, because at 7:57 that night, Fat Guy in a Little End Zone did an about face and said he didn't feel like he did anything wrong. To which we can only assume that the Troll Tolls somehow got over to Fat Guy in a Little End Zone's house and began to torture him, or began to put the words into his ear about not towing the party line, as it were. Now, we were unable to confirm any of these reports, but some people are saying that is what happened, and
Many people are saying.
Many are saying. And then, perhaps the most shocking move of the night, the most shocking, the wildest thing that happened while we were discussing this very important issue, at 8:11 p.m. that evening, the league found other things to talk about and moved on from this topic.
Yes, it seems that in an interesting strategy, there were several deflecting comedic memes leaning into the villainous behavior by Troll Tolls. And then there was actually radio silence for almost an hour until Troll Tolls returned with a post, completely unrelated, focused on how the Super Bowels is. He essentially has said that their opponents have been weak, and his record is he besmirched the honor of the Super Bowels. So we went from Brian being under the microscope. Sorry, to use his formal name, Troll Tolls being under the microscope, to this sort of spin twist. Look at this other team, look at this other issue, and from then on, it was just a matter of distraction, and it wasn't returned to, at least not then.
And so we have to, after seeing all of the public discourse over this, we have to look and ask ourselves, based off of the Oxford Dictionary question or definition of collusion, was this secret? Was this done to deceive or cheat others? In order to better answer those questions, our crack investigative team has gone out and scoured the internet to find documents, to find the conversations that may have occurred between the Troll Tolls and Fat Guy in a Little End Zone. And I am happy to report that our incredible team has found documentation that helps to clear some of this issue.
We did. And I think it's important to note, in this moment, the conversations that we are about to recount, there was no ask or request, nor was any request or ask granted for these conversations that we're about to share to be off the record. So I believe it is with firm confidence in our journalistic integrity that we share them here now.
On October 22nd at 11:25 a.m., the Troll Toes proposed a deal with a gentleman's agreement. This deal is, in fact, the one that eventually would be perpetrated on this league. 4 minutes later, Fat Guy in the Little End Zone acknowledged that this is a shady deal with a question: maybe you don't think people will raise the pitchforks? Troll Tolls then tells Fat Guy in a Little End Zone, it's been done before. A select group will cry, but it's never been deemed collusion. I wouldn't add the caveat. Note, in this exchange, Troll Tolls is actively advocating for deceiving the group in order to get this trade through, and for leading the previously unbesmirched, untainted Fat Guy in a Little End Zone down the dark side of collusion.
Yeah, I believe that, and let's just so we can really drive this home. That statement by Troll Tolls, he had Fat Guy at Little End Zone in his sights, and he went for the kill. I wouldn't add the caveat. That's the. I feel like if you remember one thing from this, that is the line. It is, we know we're doing this. We know people will have an issue with this, or potentially could have an issue with it, but don't mention it. Instead of letting it play out in the, a robust public debate with their peers, Troll Tolls specifically advocated for deception here, withholding information that would otherwise be in the public interest. And I think that's the real, to this point, the real highlight of this exchange.
I think on a lesser note as well, as we're looking at this statement, one could look at it and see that even Brian doesn't deem this as not being, or even Troll Tolls doesn't deem this as not being collusion. He says that it has not been deemed collusion in the past. So this is not even a ringing endorsement of his own. He is acknowledging that it, in fact, could still be considered collusion.
Mm-hmm. I think that is important. It is, I believe, I hope that certain reforms will come into effect as a result of this, but I believe this is a classic case of, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on the Troll Tolls.
And Jason, I understand that you have done some additional investigation, going directly to the source, in order to further give us some clarity on this perplexing mystery.
Yes, and I believe in this case, I think it's unfortunate that Fat Guy in a Little End Zone is embroiled in this. Honestly, there are shades of guilt here, but in one-to-one conversations with Fat Guy in a Little End Zone, and this was, I did not ask these questions of him. This was unbidden, and it is sort of, the feeling I got was, it was almost like a confessional type of feeling. He had to get these things off his chest. Fat Guy Little End Zone, he acknowledged that we had a rule against collusion, which is true. And he agreed to take full responsibility and offered to withdraw his win, forfeit his win from that week. He also said he felt like it was something he shouldn't be doing. Of course, he didn't act on that, that inner moral compass. But why was that the case? He was clearly led astray by the Troll Tolls, fast talking, let's get this deal done, helps us both. No one will be any the wiser, specifically withhold information about it. This delusions of this can turn your season around. You're still in it for a playoff spot. You need a running back. You need one today. You need one next week. Why does it matter which one it is? We'll worry about that later. And, this just provided to me more context about, I think both of them are guilty, but one clearly was the ringleader in this. And I think there was some healthy measure of, even with the pleasure of a win in that week in question. And now even going forward, which we'll get to, there was still that guilt eating away at the normally morally and ethically peerless fat guy in a little end zone.
And that does bring us to who was hurt with this collusion, or with this possible collusion. Who was it that suffered the brunt of the injury? And so as we look at it, with this trade, without announcing that a gentleman's agreement had been agreed to, one would argue that that ETN would have potentially gone to fat guy in a little end zone. Brees Hall would have stayed with troll tolls. And so if we look at just that 1 week, just the hurt that was caused in one single week in this callous action, we see that fat guy in a little end zone was able to score 3 points under our scoring system, with 2 for a win and 1 for a top 6 finish. And had he not been able to deceive the league in such a way, with his counterpart, the troll tolls, Clitankoris would have gained a full 2 points, because he would have won that game quite easily. In fact, I don't believe there was any possibility that fat guy in a little end zone could have replaced the 33 points that Brees Hall scored that week. Now, interestingly, the only other person directly affected in that 1 week by this action was, in fact, the troll tolls, to which I say karma is real and alive. However, more importantly, what this has done to our league. This has now created an even muddier situation in our mid-ranged players. And so if we go top to bottom, we now have the teams that were greatly affected by this. The Malcolm Death Squad, Clitankoris, bottom of the barrel, Cardinals, and even the lowly Mad Dogs were affected by this in their ability to be able to fight for a playoff spot, to be able to fight for that number 8 spot so that they're not doing a podcast next year. This has now created a situation in which Clitankoris, not only were they hurt that week, but they were hurt season long, because they've now been dragged into the middle as opposed to being at the bottom of the upper tier of players. And so we can see the long-ranging effects that this will have, and potentially, Clitankoris, I will say, you may have, recourse for legal action on this in the future, should you feel that you need, help or someone to talk to, or in the future, based off of the pain and suffering that's been caused to you.
I mean, it is hard to, I think above all else, what this league prides itself in is our integrity. And in this situation, we have Clitankoris' first season as a member of this group. He comes in here, bright eyes, full of hope. Starts off great to the season. Has some a really unfortunate week. Injuries. And he was trying to pull himself up by his bootstraps the best that he could. And what happened to him? Two bad actors came along and snipped those bootstraps just when he was beginning to pull himself back. And he's performed admirably since then. He is sitting in a good spot, but that good spot could be much more solid. And there really is, no one who has been harmed more, not just in the standings, but as a fellow team, as someone who is experiencing the the camaraderie that exists in this league for the first time. And I just can't help but think of the shadow that has been cast over that experience for Clitankoris. Now, maybe his season continues to go well, makes the playoffs. Maybe things play out where all of this is for naught. It just becomes a footnote of history. But at this moment, I feel like we cannot turn our eyes away from an ongoing injustice that has been perpetrated in front of our eyes. It is still reverberating weeks later.
Though, Jason, of course, we want our listeners to decide for themselves whether or not they believe that this is the case.
I mean, of course, this is just, I'm putting myself in the shoes of one of our listeners. Of course, I am not taking any position one way or the other. Of course, I'm presenting the facts as they exist. But this is perhaps, as they're listening to this, some of these thoughts are going through the minds of the other managers in the league.
So again, you have to ask yourself and look at it and say, was it secret? Was it used in order to cheat or deceive others? And then again, also, you have to look at the impact that it had on innocent people within the league that did nothing else except show up to be able to participate in a fun, frivolous game with friends, to be able to test their football knowledge, to be able to best friends and send silly memes. And now it's been blackened with this possible collusion. Allegedly. So Jason, only because we're based off of the fact that we're going over about rules and things like that right now, and so this is the perfect chance for anyone to lambaste us. We need to make sure that this lasts for another minute and 30 seconds because the rule is 30 minutes. So
it is. And I think, again, of course, we are nothing if not devoted followers of the rules. I would say, we have faithfully undertaken podcasts on a weekly basis. We have exceeded the time limit on every occasion. Sometimes more than twice as long as needed.
Actually, most times that's our average
for most of the time. And it's that I think I just keep coming back to, like the managers who, even those who have full plates in their personal lives, bottom of the barrel, for example, is stated, this he has little time for this. He's doing his best, and mixed results. However, that effort that he has put in with the little time available to him, look at the look at how he has been impacted as well in this. It's one thing you can say, well, who's this really going to hurt? This alleged collusion here. But I think a better question is, who do you think you are? And if that statement, resonates with you, if that statement, those words send a chill down your spine, I think you need to do some soul searching. Look inward and say, why do those words resonate with me so strongly? And if I could do it again, would I do differently, knowing what I know now?
Well, from this investigative report of the Irish Goodbye, I'm Shane, he's Jason. If you have any information leading to the conviction of the potential collusion, please reach out to Jason or I on the Discord, and we will help to bring the perpetrators to justice.
Yes. Failure to act may cause additional needless harm to innocent members of the League.
Or more podcasts like this.
Or more podcasts like this.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Good night and good luck.